What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another video. Um, so my last video I was talking about like making changes to characters and how it's not like I don't see it as like a huge issue. Like I said, as long as you're sticking with the spirit of the character and like contextually it makes sense, right? And so today I wanted to dive into that. And so there's two subjects I want to talk about. First, and by subject I mean characters. So the first one is the recasting of Snape for the Harry Potter show that's coming out. It just, having gone back and, okay, so a little bit of backstory first, before I really dive into this, is that, so in my house growing up, we weren't allowed to read Harry Potter. My mom was one of those people that said it was evil and that it would corrupt us and didn't like all the magic and all that stuff. So I wasn't able to read it as a child, so I kind of missed the hype when the movies came out. No, I watched the movies. I went to the movie theaters and saw the movies. I actually really enjoyed the movies, and for the longest time, I didn't have a frame of reference beyond the movies to judge these characters by. And so, but then having gone back and then I read the books later, and then I just recently re-listened to all the books because they've got the full voice casted versions on Audible, and so I picked them all up and listened to them again, just because I've got the nostalgia, I've got the of just that world, and J.K. Rowling did such an amazing job, and people like to talk about all the plot holes that exist within the books, but I don't see them as an issue. There was an interview with one of the creators of Toy Story, and the question came up that was like, hey, Buzz Lightyear doesn't think he's a toy, so why does he fall down when Andy comes in? And they knew that was kind of a glaring issue, and they just glossed over it. They just said, we're going to focus on making such a great film that no one will care. And I think that's what J.K. Rowling accomplished with the Harry Potter books, that she wrote such an intriguing story and made it so timeless that nobody cared about the plot holes until now. Now we've grown up, we're older now, we've become more cynical or whatever, and so now we look at everything with a critical eye because we don't trust anything, because millennials don't trust anything that anybody puts out because of the world we live in today, and that's just a consequence of the world we live in. Anyway, but having gone back and re-listened to all of the books and contextualizing Snape being recast as an African American just doesn't make sense, and it makes you really question the casting director when you look back on Snape's life and we have all of these things that he's done and the way he was raised, and just it looks really bad. It looks really bad. And I won't go too much into it. I don't want to go down that road. But then the other one is in the Mistborn movie that's coming out. Now, Brandon Sanderson has stated that he was interested in or playing with the idea of gender swapping Ham from the Mistborn series. And this is just another pick that just doesn't make sense to me, and it feels kind of weird. And it's, of all of the characters you could change the gender or race for or whatever, like, Ham just doesn't make sense. He's this big beefy guy who tries to be an intellectual and tries to be philosophical, but the nature of his power is that he doesn't feel cold, and that he's resistant to cold temperatures, and he's resistant to, well, just extreme temperatures in general, I suppose. And he's really big, he's really bulky, and so he just kind of walks around with an open front vest. Now that's like that. Whatever, you can change things like that if you're going to swap him to being a woman. The issue lies in him and as it relates to him and his family, because he has a lot of children. He has a wife, and he knows that what he's doing is very unsafe. What he does is very dangerous. He's a criminal, essentially. And his family lives in a different settlement outside of the city that he conducts all of his business in. And nobody knows that he has a family, and he does that to protect his family. And I can't. And I've kind of had these conversations with my wife, and she's like, no, how can you have a family how could you raise a family of like 6 or 7 children and be a career criminal and nobody knows that you have a husband and children? The kind of sacrifice doesn't make sense in the context of what they do, of what he does. So, so those are just examples that I have come up with that I try to rationalize, and the more you look at it, the worse it gets. And it's the recasting of Snape, the race swapping thing is just, I don't know. I think it was kind of a PR stunt, and no hate towards the actor. The guy he's an actor. You take the roles, right? And Harry Potter is such a popular franchise still that how could you not jump on the chance to be a part of that as it's being redone? And yeah, I don't know. I just think it's weird. But it's, and with Harry Potter too, like I said, there's so much nostalgia for it because I didn't realize that the first book is almost 30 years old. It'll be 30 years old next year. Isn't that crazy? We really don't think back, we really don't look back. And it came out in 1997 is when it was published. That's just wild that it's already been 30 years since Harry Potter started. And like I said, it was super weird that growing up, like I said, I didn't get to read the books. But then the movies came out, and the first movie came out at the same time as the first Lord of the Rings movie came out. And I was allowed to watch the Lord of the Rings movies, and we were allowed to watch the Harry Potter movies, but we weren't allowed to read the books. It was strange. Anyway, those are just my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments. Make sure you like, subscribe, and we'll see you in the next video. Y'all have a good day.